Welcome to Keep the Game Beautiful podcast. Each week, I highlight incredible people who are doing amazing things in soccer, the beautiful game. I'm Cary, your host. Thank you for listening. Today's guest is Cary. So Sam talks a lot about just always being involved in soccer and loving the game a lot. And that's one of the main reasons I started this podcast, to highlight the beautiful stories in the game. So, of course, we want to highlight the positive, but we do have to talk about the negative. For one of the first times ever, I think, we're talking about referee abuse. And that's not something I've ever really discussed in here, but it is really important. Every referee has to deal with it. And referee abuse can drive referees out, either young and new or experienced referees who just can't handle it anymore. Because we want to keep as many referees in the game as possible. I hope even if you're not a referee, if you're a coach or a player, you can really listen to that part especially and learn from it. Of course, I've loved seeing NWSL games back in action. Well, of course, back in action for a little bit of time now. It's super exciting getting close to semifinals and finals of the Challenge Cup. I hope you're enjoying watching all those games as well, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Today's guest is Cary. Sam isn't only an exceptional soccer athlete, but she's also a very experienced referee. She's refereed at many levels, even officiating the USYS National Championship. This past year, she started playing for the University of Iowa. Sam played 21 games and 1,667 minutes her freshman year, which is very impressive. So, Sam, is there anything else you would like to add or share about yourself?
Honestly, no, you got it covered. I'm very thankful, and obviously soccer covers many aspects of my life, and I'm excited to share with anything you want to know.
So on this podcast, I always start with the same 3 questions. So first, what does the beautiful game mean to you?
Gosh, everything. That's not too generic of an answer. No, I mean, I started playing soccer when I was little, as most people do. And it's just something that grew into being in so many different aspects of my life. Through soccer, I've learned so many different life lessons. It's truly developed who I am. I've built so many relationships. And I feel like soccer is just overall one of those games and like one of those things that you can do that like can transform so many different aspects of your life. Like it's so beautiful, as you say, in the sense because like you can get whatever you want to put in out of it.
What are actions or things you do to keep the game beautiful?
Oh God, there's so much. I mean, there's so much stigma sometimes around soccer in the sense like, oh, it's overbearing, it's so competitive and stuff like that. So like, you can ask anyone, I'm probably one of the most competitive people that you can hear about. Like, I love it. But also like making sure you know in your heart why you play soccer, I feel like is like why you can keep the sport beautiful and keep like the true reason behind the sport intact. So like by doing the little things, knowing why you're playing, who you're playing for, how you grew up, like that's how you keep the game beautiful.
How do you encourage others to keep the game beautiful?
I feel like there's so many different ways to do it, but I'm a firm believer in the fact of leading by example. Like I feel like that's the best way that you can really show people what you're all about, but also help influence others because at the end of the day, you can't make other people's decisions for them. So the best way I try to keep the game beautiful is just showing like all the amazing aspects of it. Like soccer's a hard sport. There are some days where you're going to be so upset with how you played, how you officiated, all these different things. But like at the end of the day, if you can think to yourself why you play and that joy the sport gives you, and you can exude that and then spread that to other people, that's the best way to try to get more people to understand like the amazing like aspects of it.
So I know for some of us, we love being on the pitch both as a referee and a player. So could you talk a little bit more about how you found your passion in both roles?
Absolutely. So as I said, I grew up playing soccer, as most people do. So I've never had an athlete in my family. My family is not filled with athletes at all. So it's not like it was one of those, oh, my mom played college soccer, so I did. But I'm extremely competitive. And so when I was little, my mom put me out there. And I just fell in love. I was probably that kid when I was little that was like, you never thought would go anywhere with soccer. I was really bad. But I also had that competitive edge to me that I've always had. So I just wanted to keep working. And honestly, my passion for soccer developed from my passion of working hard. Like, I can't say that soccer was initially like, oh, I love playing this sport, but I love seeing that the time and the effort I put in led to results, and that led into that growth and that belief of how much I do love playing this sport. So that, I mean, from a young age, I invested my love in soccer. I remember I was the kid, like, if you go to my childhood bedroom, my whole room is covered with, I think it's like over 200 soccer balls between the wallpaper and the posters and all this stuff. When it came to officiating, it was kind of a different story. So I started becoming a referee because naturally I had just gone to my freshman year of high school, and I was like, oh, like, what's a good high school job? Like, I didn't know what to do. I played in the ECNL growing up, and so we traveled around so much that, like, having a normal wasn't really an option. So when I started officiating, it was because I could create my own schedule, and I could just be like, oh, I'll work this weekend and this weekend, and like that was about it. And so I never actually planned on going anywhere with officiating. It was just kind of a side thing. But being around the people, like, I can attest that referees are some of the best people in this world. I absolutely love spending my time with them. Like, they're people I go hang out with on the weekends. Like, I absolutely love being around referees. So that kind of grew a little bit more, and like my mentors in the referee world have been amazing. And last summer, as you mentioned, like, my referee career definitely took a new heights with going to the USYS Regionals and then being invited to USYS Nationals, and just being able to experience, like, how much the different aspects of the game can mean certain things. Like, I've learned so many lessons about being a teammate and being a leader and all that stuff from playing soccer. But when you're a referee, I feel like there's so many other lessons you can learn, like, as a growing adult, like, as a high schooler, like, how do you talk to adults? How do you carry yourself with confidence? How do you, that call that you don't know if it's exactly right or not, but you can sell it because you're in the right position and you have the right body, like, language. So there's so many different aspects of refereeing that, like, I learned from, and I just loved being around.
So I was wondering if you had any first game memories or any first of your few games.
Oh, from refereeing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I grew up in Missouri, and so this is like my first year being in Iowa, and I will never forget my first refereeing game. I was wearing black jean shorts. I was not wearing referee shorts. I had an oversized shirt. I was wearing my cheetah print glasses because I didn't have contacts yet. Like, I looked a mess. And actually, there's a picture of me. I still have it because there's a journalist who's been a mentor for me this whole time, Ole Olson from Missouri. His, like, tag name is Soccer STL. And he took a picture of me the first game I refereed, and I, like, still have this to my day. I look a mess. I did not know what offsides was. Actually, I do remember, like, for some reason, when I first started reffing, I was like, I don't really need to learn how to ref. Like, I've played soccer my whole life. I don't know what to do. So I'm running an AR, and I literally, like, ran past my, like, bounds. So I didn't stop at the halfway line in my quadrant. I kept going. Like, I was running the entirety of the sideline. I had no idea what I was doing. I remember, like, my first season, I would just, like, it was 8v8. Like I said, I wasn't there because I was going to take refereeing seriously. So I was, like, twirling the flag around, like, just messing with myself because I was bored. So no, eventually, like, after time and time, I was like, okay, like, I actually should take this seriously. And that's when I, like, became fun for me, is when I started taking it seriously. But no, my first couple of games, I was a mess.
I know my first few games, I was a little bit nervous. Did you ever get nervous, and how did you overcome those nerves?
I was so nervous. No, and, like, especially for me, like, as an AR, I, like, unless it's a big game, I really tend to not get nervous because, like, the spotlight's not on you. Mm-hmm. And the best way, like, I try to calm these nerves is, like, I'm a very sociable person. Like, I love talking. I love building relationships. So I remember my first couple games as an AR when I was nervous, I talked to the parents. Like, it was just totally, like, not always something you should do. But, like, it was just, like, the right time, the right setting. And just be like, oh, like, how are you guys doing today? Like, we'd start, like, a good rapport. So that kind of taught me. I will never forget my first whistle, though. Like, I was terrified. Did not know what I was doing. Coaches were yelling at me. One of my first recollections of a big game I ref. So the first year I started reffing, I was actually invited to ref at Missouri State Cup. And it was like day 3. I wasn't supposed to do a whistle. I was 15 years old. So, like, did not think I was going to do anything. And they ended up moving me to a whistle of a game that didn't matter. Like, no matter what one of the teams was going to go through. So it was just kind of the experience for me to do a whistle on a higher stage. And I got ripped apart. This coach was in my face, screaming at me. I was like, my calls were disaster. Like, I can't blame the man. I was all over the place, and, like, just dealing with that. Like, I mean, you have a older adult man yelling at you. The kids were getting frustrated. I was 15 and it was U14 boys. So these guys are practically my age. Like, it was not the best setup, but I learned so much from that game. And it's, like, one of those games that I will never forget because, like, I remember no matter how much his coach was yelling at me, like, I was like, okay, you can't let him show that, like, he's getting to you. Like, you have to keep your body composition. You have to keep your body language. Keep selling your calls. Keep running. And, this man ripped into me, and I'll never forget it. But the funny story that I always think about was last summer, I was reffing Missouri State Cup again, and it was U17 boys, I think. Sure enough, same coach. After the game, he came up to me and he goes, "Do you remember a few years ago?" And I was like, "How could I forget a few years ago?" He's like, "You're now the ref that I request. Like, I want you to ref our games." So like that transition over those years like meant so much and showed so much to me.
Yeah, so how can we help younger referees understand that you can learn from your mistakes?
That's a great question. I feel like a lot of people are intimidated to be a referee because they don't want to have someone yell at them. They don't want to deal with parents and stuff like that. I think the best way to do it is like, so if you're a young referee on a game, I always recommend working with referees who have been around the world for a while, just because you don't want a full crew of young people, because that does get very intimidating. I couldn't imagine. But like the best thing for me is when I was nervous, I knew like I had such good rapport with the people I were working with and I trusted them. So like if, I made a call and like I looked at my AR and he like gave me that like head nod, like, yes, that was the right call. It boosted my own confidence. So no matter what a coach was yelling at me, I knew that the person who was working with me agreed with me. So I think the best thing we could do as referees is to support the younger referees. I feel like everyone knows there's never going to be a perfect game. You're never going to make every call 100% correct. And I don't think that younger referees fully understand that. So doing anything we can to support younger referees getting into the game and showing them and motivating them to stay in. Because honestly, I don't know if I would have stayed in refereeing if I did not have the support from the amazing mentors that I had.
So how much confidence actually goes into officiating?
Oh gosh, so much. Honestly, I fully believe you can fake it till you make it, which is kind of bad to say. But when it comes to officiating, it's all in your body language. It's all in your positioning. It's all in how confident you can blow that whistle. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, it's your discretion if it's a foul or not, or if the ball went out of bounds, or whatever the call may be. So as much as you can throw your arm up and have that strong body composition with that strong whistle, that's all that matters. Because a coach cannot question a call if you're on top of the play and you have that exposure. He might have not seen something, and that'll make the coach realize that. I think where a lot of issues come into play is when referees look like they're second guessing themselves, at the end of the day, I have so many different referee stories that I always love to tell, but one of my first years, I think I was refereeing, I was reffing within the club that I played. It was a younger team. The coaches didn't know me, so it wasn't a big deal. But the coach, I think, kind of knew of me, and him himself was a very well-known referee. And so as a coach, he knew what was going on. He also knew I was a younger referee. And I remember right in front of his bench, there was a call, and a girl got tripped, whatever. I called advantage. And he did not agree that I should have called advantage because eventually the girl went and scored against his team. And I called advantage. The assistant coach went ballistic on me. He's screaming at me in my face. And the head coach ended up staying calm. Eventually I had to throw the assistant coach out just because of some of the stuff he was saying and some of the stuff he was doing. After the game, the head coach came up to me and he was like, "You know what? I will not agree with your call. I've been a referee for a long time. I disagree with that decision. But because of the way you carried yourself and the way you held yourself, I had no room to complain with you." And so, I feel so much of it, but, also when you are a young referee, that's where you get to learn that confidence. I would never have the confidence I have in myself if it wasn't because I was a referee.
I think a lot of people don't really know exactly what goes into refereeing, how much work we have to do just outside of the game, not even conditioning or running so what do you do to train for high-level games?
Oh, absolutely. People do not understand the world of refereeing, and honestly, I didn't understand until I was involved with it. There's so much different things you can do before a big game and stuff like that. I remember last summer when my prep getting ready for USYS Nationals, I never thought I would watch a professional soccer game and not be watching the game. It turns into the fact, when I'm on my mind focus that I'm a referee, which is where my focus tends to be over summers because that's when I really get to ref when I'm not playing. And I watch the referee during college games. I love to watch their movement, watch their patterns. I love when there's slow-mos after a foul and it's oh, well, did you see this clip? Or is that a foul? And second guessing calls. So much of refereeing for me is relying on my gut because I have been around the game of soccer for so long. I feel in my gut when something happens, I'm yes, that's a foul. No, that's not a foul. And so when I get to watch it and I get to slow down the games and I get to pick things out piece for piece is when I get better as a referee because I'm no longer relying on my gut. I mean, the amount of times that we've done webinars for Iowa referees or even attending other webinars. I have a good friend out in New Jersey who's having me jump on some of their webinars just to get myself and become a better referee. And there's just so many different things that like you can do and that I do. Like I love going through even the IFAB like rule book and just, you know, restarting things. Like going into this college season, like there is changes of rules for college, but they've been around, you know, for other things like, you know, the certain handball policies or like the goal kick policies that have changed. And college is adapting those this year. So even it's kind of funny because like people look to me, they're like, well, what does this mean? And so like just being so familiar with the game from all aspects, like it's the best way to prepare.
Have you found during this COVID time that there's more virtual trainings and more opportunities?
Absolutely. And that's one thing I credit the Iowa referee program for so much. I've come from Missouri, like I said, I've recently transferred my badge over just because I do go to college in Iowa, and I stay in contact with my people from Missouri all the time. And I feel like Iowa has created this like area where there's so much virtual instruction, there's so much opportunity, and the discussions that the referees have in Iowa, it creates such a very like healthy and great learning environment that I absolutely love and respect so much. I feel like this has happened though all over because right now they're like I feel like the best way to referee is to gain experience. That's the only way you're gonna get better is just by throwing yourself to the wolves sometimes and doing it. So when it comes down to this awkward and weird situation where you can't do that, what do you do? And so the creation of all these webinars where we get to go over film, whether it be from an amateur game, a college game, or a professional game, and really break things down, like there's been such an increase because it's really all people can do right now. But also I feel like it's so helpful because it's allowing everyone to kind of get back to the basics of everything.
Who are some of your mentors that have helped you along the way?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I'm so thankful for all my people. I mean, like I said, a lot of it comes out of Missouri just because that's where I grew up. I kind of gave the one a shout out earlier. Soccer SCL, Ole, you have seriously helped me so much with everything. When it came to like just giving me encouragement and being a familiar face, like some games that you would show up to. So that's amazing. But my Missouri people, I love them so much. So Randy Masterson, Maggie Donnelly, they've been incredible mentors for me. They're the ones that literally, like, I'll never forget. Randy was the one that taught getting my first certification lesson. And he's literally like, they've grown into like, when I go home, like I literally will go out to dinner without. I love them so much. They're my favorite people. It's so funny because now that I play in the college world, the referees of the college games are the high level referees from the state. So, you know, like sometimes like the people I refed at nationals with are the people that'll ref our games. And so it's just kind of the fun of like having that rapport with someone and like seeing the familiar faces. There's people in Iowa. I haven't been an Iowa referee for very long, and I haven't even gotten to officiate a game yet because of everything going on with this world right now. But Assad, I love him. Maurice Van Rokel. Like, there's been so many people that have led me a helping hand. And when it comes to like furthering my referee career, but also just giving me the support I need. I know I am a very interesting case because I do play college soccer on top of being a referee, and that I have a very weird time when I can referee. Like, I can't referee in the fall, and that's a big, obvious time to be a referee. And so there's been so much support like for my crazy schedule, but also like still trying to encourage me to stay in the game when it comes to refereeing that like I could not be more thankful for.
Do you ever help mentor other referees?
Yeah, so that's definitely something like I want to continue to do. There's a couple young up and coming girls in Missouri that I think could do some amazing things. And there's the best thing for me is like seeing younger referees really try to stay in the game. There's one girl that I just look at all the time and like she amazes me. Her name's Abby Hoffman. I barely know her. I think I've had a few conversations with her, but like her energy and her spunk that she brings to every game that we got to officiate together, or that she got to, there'd be sometimes like during Missouri State Cup that we'd add a fourth official on a game we wouldn't technically need a fourth official on, just to give them that experience of being around like a higher level game. And like just some of the spunk that some of these girls bring, like I love being a youth referee and like seeing like all that progress that can grow, but also like female referees are so rare, but also they're so needed, and you can learn so much out of being a female referee that I absolutely adore. And so anytime I see a young girl referee, like I at least just want to go give her a hug for being here. So there's definitely like, I'd love to do it more, and I'd love to get out there more and do it, but like if you're a female referee, like you're my favorite human being, and it's that simple.
So speaking of female referees, how do you think we can get more female referees?
I think we just like need to get over the stigma that I feel like there is sometimes of the fact that men are the referees. I mean, when you look at the amount of games that you play, you're most likely going to have male referees. It's that simple. And so when it comes to getting female referees in the game, obviously it comes down to like recruiting them more and all that. But I think we just need to open up and show like there are a lot of very strong female referees in the repping community that I feel like aren't highlighted enough, like for the stuff that they do. And so, like, I mean, there's definitely ways that we should be getting more females in, whether it be like recruiting more youth, like women's soccer teams. I know of a club down in Missouri that I have a lot of respect for because they are making every single one of their players at least pass the test, not like officially take it, but pass the test so they know all the rules that it should take to be a referee. And start encouraging that like mentality out of people, because inevitably some aren't going to stay with it, and that's absolutely fine. But like every once in a while you'll get that girl who like really has that spark in her, and honestly it's so fun. Like, this is weird, but I've been in situations where I've been reffing a state cup game and I've reffed my prom date before. Like, it's so fun, like being the only female out there like in all guys games, like because like kind of like you're the one in charge and no one can question you. And like, have I gotten attacked, I guess you could say, for being a female? And like, there's been issues where I don't know how to deal with certain things, but that's how I've learned. Like, when I first started reffing older boys games, so like U19, U18, like higher level teenage boys games, like I didn't know how to handle it, because immediately people I would know, I could tell that they would see as a female and not take me as seriously. I've had situations where I've had to red card players because they blatantly come up to my face and say, since when are females allowed to be referees? And so I've gotten those comments, but also like, that's how you learn. And also I feel like it comes down to, like I said, I have stories on stories, so you can always tell me to stop telling them. But I remember it was state cup last year in Missouri, and I was reffing a U18, I think, boys game. No issues were going on the field. I was just kind of joking around with the players. We were having a great time. And I made a comment to a player like, hey, like, you know, calm down after like a reckless tackle or whatever. And a mom yelled from the stands like, ooh, I think she has a crush on you. And my AR, I have so much respect for this man. He's probably like a mid-20s-year-old man, went to the woman, got in her face and said, you are the reason why there are not female referees for making comments like that. And so like just standing up for each other in the referee community is how like the best way to encourage more of this happening. You know, I've been a fourth official on a lot of like U14, U15 girls games. And that's like where I take my prime recruiting in, because like as that fourth official, you know, you get to stand there, you talk to them while you're waiting to substitute in and all this stuff. And that's when you can build rapport. Like I remember at Midwest Regionals, and then this team happened to also make it at Midwest Nationals. So we were at Regionals and Nationals together, and I was their fourth official at Regionals. And at Nationals, you know, we're walking around the facility, you know, getting ready for a game or whatever, and the team came up to me and they're like, you were our fourth official. They remembered me because I had joked around with them. And one girl came up to me, she's like, I got my referee badge last week. And so like the best way to encourage more females is just by showing like having fun with it. Being a referee is so fun. Being around it, having our bubbly personalities come out, and that's the best way that we can get more people involved.
Yeah, for my local USYS, there wasn't many female mentors or other referees around me. So I was kind of reaching out and trying to get some of my friends to join in. But do you think it's important for female referees to have a female mentor as well?
I definitely think so. I can also say I didn't have one. And I feel like that would have helped a lot. I actually have, so I have Maggie. Maggie Donnelly is our assigner for the St. Louis League that I reffed in. Incredible. I've never gotten to see her work just because now, you know, she's more of an assigning stage. But she did help keep me in the game in that eyes. But I do wish I would have had a, like, younger in the game female referee that I could have looked to. And I didn't a lot of the time, just in the area that I was in and stuff. And I feel like that would have helped me a lot. So I feel like now, like, that I am 19, 20, getting on the age where I'm now no longer a youth referee, I guess. That's scary, I'm growing up. Like, that's what I'm now going to do. And that is what I've decided, that, like, I'm going to be that person for, like, the people I'm around. Because I do feel like having and seeing the female referees that like are currently working and doing amazing things, like that's the best way to like keep people in the game and really see like the benefits of all of this.
So just a little bit back, we talked a little bit about like parents and coaches yelling at referees. So I want to talk about that just a little bit more, because I don't think I've ever really talked about it on the podcast. So can you just talk about if any situations where you've come in contact with any referee abuse?
Oh gosh, I have stories on stories of this. No, and it ranges from so many different things. Like, I don't know if there's a game where you're not going to get a, oh, come on, ref. Like, and that's inevitable. And, like, you know, you take that off the chin, it does not matter. There are more serious situations that I have encountered, and I'm very sad to have encountered it, obviously, but, like, I also feel like it brings attention to all of this. Probably my worst referee abuse story, I'll never forget it. It was a U19 boys state cup game in Missouri. And we had an all-female crew, which I was extremely excited about, just because, like, it was one of those times, like, in Missouri, you have about, like, one female from each section of Missouri. So you have the Kansas City, the Springfield, Missouri, and the St. Louis. So we finally all got together, and we actually made an all-female crew, which was great. Until this game started getting very intense. And I was the whistle of this game. And, you know, it turned into a lot of, like, yellow cards and just dissent and just a lot of things going on. So by the end of the game, player made a comment that, let's just say, deserved him a red card. We'll leave it at that. So I was showing him the red card, and all of a sudden I see the guy in charge, Randy Masterson, as I mentioned, the assigner of State Cup, dart across the field. And I was like, what is going on? So we're playing at a facility in St. Louis that has fences about 3 to 4 feet tall, but the parents stand on the outside of the fence just to keep, you know, balls in play and such. And I turn around, and there's a parent jumping the fence to charge onto this field, yelling, I'm going to get her, I'm going to get her, because I had apparently given his son a red card. And it was a state cup game situation. And so my whole crew, we got in the golf cart, we got out of there. Police came onto the field. So obviously this is a very intense, very dramatic situation that most people will not have to encounter. But this also opened my eyes to, like, the referee abuse that you do here, and these stories are real. And it's kind of hard to just, like, I don't, like, so many people, I feel like we talk about it, but, like, until you experience it, you don't really realize, like, everything going on. And obviously, like, we can try to discourage referee abuse as much as possible. But I feel like at the end of the day, like, it's one of those things that's so hard to just get rid of. And so this is, like, when, after situations like this, like, the club needs to take a stand. The other referees need to take a stand. Other parents need to take a stand. And that's the only way that's going to, like, discourage this behavior, if we show that it's truly, like, shunned upon. And so, like, I remember after this situation, like, other parents were coming up to me apologizing for this parent's behavior. And so because of that, like, it showed, like, the solidarity. And that's the only way that, like, issues like this are going to start to disappear.
Yeah, and like you said, it always comes at many different levels, because I had an experience in a 10U rec game.
Wow.
So it's all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, you know, honestly, sometimes the more intense games I feel like are the easier ones, because, like, when you get to that, like, U19 boys GA level, like, where they're all committed to college and stuff like that, the parents, like, I don't want to say don't care anymore, but, like, they've learned that, like, yelling at a ref is not going to get them anything. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it's those, like, levels that you don't expect it, that, like, that's when parents and coaches are going to start, you know, really getting in your face. But as I've mentioned earlier, like, situations like that, like, yeah, they're scary to be in. I will not lie. I was scared when all of that was going on. But that's when you grow as a person and as a referee. Like, that's when you, like, realize, like, wow, I was tough enough to handle this, like, guy 20 years, 30 years older than me yelling at my face. And I had the upper hand, and I stayed calm, and I stayed collected. So, like, as a person, when it comes to, like, my ability and my self-confidence and my composure, I know I've grown because of situations like that.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about your playing experiences too. So what was your recruitment process like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know there have been a lot of changes to, like, NCAA rules since I have committed to Iowa and been in this program. And so obviously, like, my experiences don't reflect directly on, like, what experiences for people would be now. But so as I mentioned earlier, I played in the ECNL. I played for St. Louis Scott Gallagher. That gave us a lot of opportunities to, you know, get seen on a national level through the, like, national showcases that ECNL holds. Plus, like, our regional games are always very competitive, and you can always expect at least 1 or 2 college coaches at those. For me, I kind of always knew I had this dream of playing in the Big Ten Conference. I didn't know it was entirely, like, feasible, but it was the goal for me. And so both my parents graduated from the University of Illinois. So immediately I reached out, like, to, like, that school and just other Big Ten schools nearby, because, like, that was, like, where I wanted to hopefully end up. So I did actually send an email to Iowa really early. I sent it the summer going into my freshman year of high school, just to be like, hi, and, like, that was way ahead of the game. I didn't need to do that, but it was just, like, that's also the kind of person I am, and I didn't want to wait any longer. So my freshman year, I went on a couple unofficial visits, but also like my coach really did not want us to start the process as early as a lot of people had been because he wanted us to really be confident in our decision. So I remember when it came down to Iowa, that summer, I had gone to an ID camp. I really liked campus. I liked the like coaches. I liked the like contact that we had had. I have so much respect for our coaching staff here. I like genuinely feel like I'm a part of like their family at this point. Like, and I did even when I was being recruited. Like, I'll never forget one of my first phone calls with head coach like Dave Biani. Like, I was getting ready for homecoming. Like, I was doing my makeup and my hair, getting ready for like my sophomore homecoming, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like we were just talking about it." Like, it was so funny to me. And so when I went on my another official for Iowa, like I just knew. Like, it's so cheesy like that. Like, oh, when you walk into a campus, you just know. But like I did. And Iowa was actually one of the last schools I visited. It was like I had a couple other offers in other places, but I visited Iowa like Saturday night into Sunday. I saw a game Sunday. I talked to Dave Sunday. I committed on Tuesday. It was like everything fit. I love our program. I love our coaches. I love the team, like, and the culture that like we have. It's a very like blue collar, like, you know, it's very, you know, you put your head down, you work. One of our team rules that I feel like we say all the time is like you have to have grit. You have to have that, like, you know, resiliency to bounce back from anything. And like I feel like all of those components describe the type of player I am. So like that's how I knew like I would fit in here.
What advice would you give to a player going through the recruitment process?
It's scary. Like, you can't sugarcoat it. Like, I feel like one of the most frustrating things was for me when I was going through the recruiting process was like coaches would be like, you should smile more. Like, this is like when it's fun, like you're getting recruited, all this stuff. And like I absolutely like look back, I'm like, yeah, like that was insane. But also you cannot deny like the scariness that is going on at that time. I think the biggest advice I could say to anyone is like when it comes to actually picking a school, at the end of the day, like look for more besides like, oh, was that my first offer? I know of too many horror stories of girls that, you know, get so excited about that first college offer and they commit. And then they end up not liking the school, or the coach doesn't work out, or it's not the right fit for them. So at the end of the day, they end up decommitting and having to go through the process all over again. So I feel like it's such a hard process to navigate. Like, it's stressful, it's scary, but building that connection with each coach you're talking to so you can feel confident that that's a coach you want to play for. Like I said, Dave and I think like we had a point in my recruiting process, I could have called him and like been like, I failed a math test. And he would be like, and we talk about my math test. Like, he knew everything about my life. And so like I had such a good connection with him, as well as other coaches, like that this allowed me to really see like the characteristics of the coach and the program that I actually wanted to be around. And so take your time, get to know the coaches, get to know the campus. Don't get like too like sworn away of like the wins and losses of the program, like, but look at like the roots of the program, because that's what's going to show. At the end of the day, any record or any team can change in 3 years. Like, you're going to have a whole new flow of players from like when you're recruited versus like when you're playing. So it comes down to like the roots of the program that you need to look for.
So what does your day look like in terms of like schoolwork and practices and game travel and everything else?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Big Ten is it's a strenuous schedule. There's no doubt about it. Like, it's some of the best soccer in the country, like at the college level, and I absolutely love it. But also it's tough. So when it comes to our fall season, I'm really thankful. So we have morning practices, which is great because it's kind of like a roll out of bed. You go to practice, you work hard, and then like the rest of the day you can focus on school, which works perfect for like me. So I wake up, go to practice, whether it be like we lift and then we go to practice, or it's just a straight practice depending on the day and like when the game is that week and stuff like that. And afterwards, it's kind of like you have the rest of the day. So going to class, homework, it gets stressful and overwhelming, but also like last year, you know, we were in the dorms. And so like, you know, I just go knock on my like teammate's door. Like, there'd be times where like my best friend who wasn't my roommate, like I'd walk in, she'd be sleeping in my bed. She's just like, I missed you. Like, we have really weird moments like that where we all get to laugh. But when it comes down to traveling too, we typically leave the day before a game. Like, we don't tend to travel ever like the day of a game, which I think is really nice just for like your legs and your body. But it does lead to you missing some school and stuff like that, which obviously is never a great thing. But, you know, professors tend to be really good as long as you give them advice and like notice about like, hey, I'm a student athlete, which they technically already know. Like, I'm going to be missing this day. What will I be missing? How do I make it up? Like, professors really are great with working with you, or TAs or whatever. And just like, obviously they're staying on top of homework and stuff like that. But Yeah, I mean, so after practice, like you kind of have the rest of the day to do what you need to do, whether it be going to class, doing your homework, writing your papers, go to tutoring, which like we have tutors through our athletic department, which is amazing. We have like our Jardine Athletic Learning Center at the University of Iowa, which is where like athletes can go and study, and we have fueling stations in there as well as like individual rooms, big rooms, computer labs, and stuff like that. We have access to really like help us with our education, and that's like one thing I know like Iowa really emphasizes. We have the mentality of win, graduate, do it right. And like our coach, like we definitely focus on like three aspects about like soccer player. There's your athletic aspect, your like student aspect because you are a student athlete, and who you are as a person. And all three of those really combine to like be like who you are. And so I feel like Iowa does a very great job of emphasizing all aspects of that and not just worrying about like soccer.
So was the transition from like the high school schedule hard to transition to the college schedule?
Yeah, so I actually did something relatively uncommon. I graduated high school a semester early. So I ended up graduating high school in December of my senior year, and I started at Iowa in January of what would have been my senior year of high school. So it was definitely unconventional, but I did have another girl who was my age do the same thing. So we got to like come in at the same time, which was really nice. It's definitely a change. Like there's no doubt about it. You're leaving home. I'm around 4 hours away from home right now, so it's a good distance because like I could go home if I needed, but like I never really am at home. I'm in a completely different state. I didn't know anyone here, but I feel like our program did make it a good job. A lot of upperclassmen were really helpful with me. Just talking to me like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And I was like overwhelmed like crazy. Our coaches, reaching out, "How was your first class?" and like stuff like that was always happening, which is amazing. The soccer itself is a difference. Like you can't deny it. It is a lot more physical, a lot more like combative. I feel like overall, like, and that's like I said, the type of player I am. So it fit for me, and it was really good. But also like it's more technical. It's at a faster pace, and so I'm very thankful I had that semester under my belt before going into my first Big Ten season, because that gave me time to like get adjusted to it and know what I was really getting myself into before like actual season came around. I got to play in all the spring games that we had and stuff like that. We actually went to Europe that semester, so I was able to go to Europe with the team, and like we played games in Germany and Denmark, which was incredible. And so by doing that, like that helped my transition personally. But you can't deny that there is definitely like a transition in the speed, in the physicality. But just being around it, like it's kind of one of those you sink or swim. Like you're gonna jump on board or you're not. And most people, after a little bit, we get on board and you figure it out. So just like being around that atmosphere is like definitely like the best way to like that's the only way to transition really.
Was it a really hard decision to make to graduate early in terms of maybe missing some bigger milestones?
Yeah, so it was definitely an interesting one. It wasn't anything I'd ever thought about doing before. Like it kind of like came up to me, and like I talked to my coaches about it, and I immediately like called my club coach after like this idea came up, and he said, "Well, for your soccer, I think it would be great, getting in that extra semester and really growing in that." And like soccer has just always been like the controlling factor of my life, and so I kind of knew that it was something I really wanted to do because I did want to be great here, and I did want to come in and really make an impact my freshman year, and I knew this is how. I did end up actually I went back for my senior prom, which was great. And so I was able to, go back to that. And like, so I missed, a lot of those typical like senior events, and I missed graduation actually. But at the end of the day, like I said, soccer has always been the driving factor in my life. And so like, I knew that this was a step I wanted to make because I had higher goals than my senior year of high school. And like, so like, there's more things I wanted to do at Iowa than I cared about, like whether it be like senior field day or whatnot.
So I know when I first met you, your mom had come out to watch you play. How important is the support your family gives you?
Oh gosh, so much. My family. Quick shout out to my parents where, as you mentioned, we had 21 games last year, and my parents went to 19 of the 21 games, and the only two they missed were in North Carolina. My parents drove I think 11 and a half to 12 hours to go just to our one Penn State game to see the Big Ten tournament. Like, my parents have been everything to me. Like, my grandma, my gosh, she like can't come to much games because of like, her age and stuff, but she has Big Ten Plus, and you bet she watches every single one of them. And I get the phone calls after. My uncle lives in Atlanta, Georgia, so he doesn't get to come and see me play much, but same with him. He watches every game, and same with my brother. But my parents have had the biggest impact of why I'm still a soccer player. As I mentioned kind of earlier, like I was never the one that was good when I was little. I was never the one that people actually thought was going to go places. But I'm now known in my club, like back home, is like my mom and I are known because my mom and I would be up at the fields practicing. My mom like shags my balls if I'm working on long balls that day. Like, she's out there with me, collecting the balls and rolling them back out to me. She has been she's been my rock through all of my soccer career. She's pushed me. Obviously, there's been days where like, after we get in the car after a bad game, there's that tension, and she's like, well, you didn't play well. And like, obviously that hurts, but she has made me so much better and so much stronger because of that mental toughness that like my parents have instilled in me. Like, I could not be more thankful for the support of my family because it's genuinely the whole reason why I'm here where I am.
So were you surprised at how many minutes you earned this past year?
I was. It was definitely a big change for me, and it was definitely like a success of a goal at the end of the day. I remember like the first goal for me going into high school was I wanted to play Division I soccer. Once I committed to Iowa, it was kind of realigning. I'm like, well, what do I want to do now? And I realized I don't want to just be a bench player my freshman year. I want to get in and I want to play. And so a lot of that was building a relationship with like our coach. Like, him and I talked a lot about like, and through the recruiting process, through like my junior and senior year, we talked a lot. A lot of it came from graduating that semester early and getting used to like the college soccer life and stuff like that. And like, I'm so thankful, obviously, for like the minutes that I played and the impact that like I feel like I had on my team and stuff like that. And from now on, like I made that goal, and now there's more. I have plenty more of what I'm going to do at my time here at Iowa. But I'm thankful for obviously everything, and I felt like it was not only a credit to me, but like I just said, my parents and everyone who supported me. But at the same time, like, there's so much more.
A few years from now, is it your hope to continue to be playing at a high level?
This is a really scary question, and I've been thinking about it more and more lately, and I'm not ready to let go of soccer. I'm not sure what's going to happen in, the next couple of years. I'm like at Iowa, but I can tell you that like, I'm not going to be ready to stop, and I'm not going to want to. And so I'm going to do everything in my power to not allow that to happen.
So I wanted to ask you just a bit about balancing like being a referee while playing. So how did you handle a bad call when your teammates lost respect for the referee?
That is a hard thing. It kind of puts you in a really weird situation sometimes. And it's kind of a funny, like, two-way, like, situation. Like, so there's funny moments and there's also, like, weird moments. So I've never been one to yell at referees. Like, I've never had that attitude. And now that I am a referee, I'm definitely not one to yell at referees. Like, hard decisions have to be made sometimes, and I completely understand that. But it's kind of funny. I felt like last fall, like, everyone like in Iowa and in the program knows I'm a referee. So, like, after the game when like we'd be going through film or whatever and there'd be a questionable call, the amount of girls that would send me like video and be like, well, what would you have done here? Like what would you do in this situation? Should the referee have done this? Like, it's kind of funny how much like it kind of gets picked apart. And I get a lot of those things because they know I'm a ref. It's interesting because like I feel at the end of the day, like a referee's decision is a referee's decision and you're not going to reverse it. And so girls will look to me and be like, well, Cary, like, was that correct? And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, he called the foul. Like, you can't change it. And so, like, it does put you in a weird situation because a lot of my team does look to me when there is, like, questionable calls. So, like, well, what was that? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't have an angle. Like, I'm over here. And so it is weird. But at the end of the day, like, there's two different hats you have to put on. Like, and when I'm focused on my referee, like what I'm doing, like I said, summers is when I really get to focus on being a referee. And so like when I'm in that persona, like I am thinking like a referee. And so like when I have to switch that hat to being a player again, it's definitely an interesting situation because I'm like, I have to look for completely different things. And I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not exactly like the nicest or cleanest player in this world. And so, like, a lot of that does translate, If you're a referee, and I know the referee's eyes are over there because something's going on, your options, let's just say. And so, yeah, no, that balance is definitely interesting, but it also gives you so much more perspective that, like, oh, like, the referee's not going to call this because this and this is also going on in the field. And so, like, it's how you can prepare mentally, like, as a player. And there's, like I said, like, growing up and being a referee and a player, I'm an outside back. I've played on the outside my entire life. That's just like the style of player I am. So all of a sudden when you're a referee and you're standing in the middle of the field, I feel like that helped my tactical game as a player because I got to see a lot more options and a lot more gaps that I normally don't get to see from being on the outside. And that helped me realize like certain gaps that I could play a ball through and stuff like that. So like it really helps both ways.
Have you ever had a coach complain about a call, but the referee was right?
Oh, yeah. I Right? And I mean, as a referee and as a player, heat of the moment is completely a thing. There have been times I've complained to a ref, like, I'd be like, come on, like, after a call, like, just like whatever. And like, I'm like, that call was completely correct. I completely pulled that girl's jersey. So there's so much different hypocritical stuff that will go on. And I feel like at the end of the day, that's like a lot of like that's the heat of the moment type of mentality that happens. So it's an interesting place to be. And so, but at the end of the day, like, like I said, like the gut of the referee typically is correct, and you really can't correct a referee's call. So it's, you say your heat of the moment, you walk away, you get back to position, you play your game.
So we've made it to our final question, which I always ask. What do you hope people remember about your impact to soccer and the world?
Wow, that's a good question. At the end of the day, I really hope my impact on the people I've been around and my soccer community and all that is how much having a personal drive and a work ethic can get you so much further. Like I said, growing up, I wasn't the player that anyone talked about. I wasn't the referee that anyone talked about when I first started refereeing too, but like that drive and that passion that I have that like I hope to share to others and like exuberate to others is what has gotten me to the point that I am at and what will carry me to where I want to go into the future. So I want people to remember me as that girl who, worked harder than anyone else, had the most passion and the most competitive edge on the team. And that's why she is where she is, or had all of those things. And that's why she's the referee that she is. And I really hope to show that like those things, I feel like there's a stigma in women's soccer that like, if you're so competitive, like why? Like I used to get stuff like bad mouthing from my like club teammates. Like, why are you like tackling at 100% in practice? Like you're going to hurt someone and stuff like that. And I feel like this is such a stigma. And like, why are we hiding that? Why are we hiding that passion and that competitiveness? And that's what I want to share is like having that is such a good thing and using that to make yourself and your team better. Like that's the ultimate, like what you can pay back.
One of the things I really enjoyed talking to Sam about was balancing being a referee and being a player. Really interesting to talk about and just think about in general. It's been fun to relate to her and kind of just chat with her because I've never talked to someone that's around my age and is also a referee and a player. We talked about keeping females in the game. Just keeping females in the game in general is so important. Like Sam said, it's just to create an environment where everyone's welcome. So I encourage you to do that. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and until next time, remember to keep the game beautiful.